A boundary can disappear in plain sight. The first crossing shocks people. But as the crossings keep happening, the shock fades. Power begins to take what it wants, and the heart slowly learns to call the corruption normal. Genesis 6 opens in a world that has already reached that point. Then one sentence gives us a name and a reason to hope. Noah. Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Good day, Gracekeepers. As we read the opening lines, listen to the way desire drives the actions of the sons of God, and the limit the Lord places on the time remaining. Grab your Bibles. We're going to read Genesis 6, 1 through 4. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." Every time I hear that final sentence in verse 4, they were heroes of old, men of renown, I always think of John MacArthur, God rest his soul. Maybe I've heard him preach on that many times, I'm not sure, but I always hear his voice saying those words whenever I read them. Anyway, the title Sons of God tells us these beings come from the heavenly realm. Job uses this title when heavenly beings present themselves before the Lord. Genesis opens our view beyond human rebellion and shows us that the disorder leading to the flood also includes rebellion in the unseen world. The words "any of them they chose" bring the nature of that rebellion into focus. What they want becomes reason enough to take. They move across a boundary God placed within creation, and their power carries that rebellion into human life. Just a side note, the name Nephilim stays untranslated in the NIV. The Hebrew word Nephilim is tricky. Its exact meaning is debated. Possibly fallen ones, or something tied to giants or mighty warriors. Older versions like the King James translate it as giants, following the ancient Greek Septuagint. But most modern Bibles, including the NIV that we just read from, just use Nephilim directly instead of translating it. They leave the Hebrew word as is because scholars aren't fully sure what it means, so they avoid forcing an interpretation. Now, Genesis places them within the result of these forbidden unions and preserves the reputation attached to them in the words, "heroes of old, men of renown." Human memory gave them a great name, and the passage places that name inside the corruption moving toward judgment. God's judgment reaches the rebellion beyond their renown. Jude describes angels who left the place God assigned them and are being kept for judgment. Peter also speaks of angels who sinned, then moves directly to the ancient world of Noah and the flood. These passages help us to recognize the rebellion Genesis has placed in front of us. The beings who crossed God's boundary remain fully under his authority. The judgment also reaches the human world through the 120 years God announces. People born after the flood live beyond that age, so the number points to the time remaining before judgment arrives. God allows those years to pass, and every one of them moves the world closer to the day he has set. The passage now takes us beneath reputation and into the human heart. Listen to what God sees there and what that sight does to his own heart. Then hold on to the name in the final sentence. Turn to Genesis 6, 5 through 8. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground. For I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. The words every inclination reach the place where thoughts are first forming. Evil has become the direction of the human heart. So the next choice keeps moving the world farther into wickedness. The problem has reached the place where human actions begin. The Lord's regret expresses his grief over what people had made of the life that he gave them. People formed in his image have turned the thoughts of their hearts toward evil, and the Creator feels the full weight of that betrayal. The judgment he announces comes from the holy God, whose heart is deeply troubled by the ruin filling his creation. Humanity was given responsibility within creation. So human corruption carries its consequences into the world under human care. The creatures named in the judgment live within this world that people filled with evil. God's sentence reveals how far the consequences of sin have actually reached. After judgment is announced, Noah's name enters with a single word over his life: favor. Favor is grace, freely given by God. God sees Noah inside that corrupt generation and gives him a future beyond the coming judgment. The man who will obey God's command begins as a man who received God's grace. Corruption becomes personal when a desire begins asking us to move a boundary that God has set. The decision may still be hidden inside our thoughts, and God already sees where it's leading. His grace meets us there and calls us to place that desire under His word before it becomes the choice that harms someone else. God's grace gives us strength to obey in that moment. We bring the desire under His word and remain within the boundary that He's given. Over time, those ordinary decisions, they form a life that walks faithfully with Him. The passage closes with the name God will carry through the coming judgment: Noah. God sees the heart within a world filled with evil and places His favor upon the person He will preserve. Before you leave, think about the order of these final words. Noah found favor. If someone asked where Noah's hope began, how would you answer? Share your answer in the comments. Before Wednesday, read Genesis 6, 9 through 22, and pay attention to the first description of Noah and to the command that will require years of obedience. If you need a full-size Bible of your own, email me at info@dailydoseofgod.org. Put the word Bible in the subject line. Include first name, age, and sex of the person receiving the Bible, as well as an address inside the United States to send it to. We would be honored to send you one. Coming up on Wednesday, we will see what God's favor asks of Noah after judgment has been announced, and the work of building the ark is placed in his hands. I'll see you Wednesday. Have a great day, folks.